Welcome to the presentation of MDA version 8.6.2. My name is Matthias Geckeler. At ETAS I am the product manager for MDA. In the present video I'm going to demonstrate the new features and improvements listed here. In the description below the video you can find jump marks to access a topic. A reworking of the error message tooltips was done to support you better in case loading a file failed. In the former versions of MDA 8, there was just a generic error message when a file could not be loaded. Its content was very generic and sometimes even misleading. In MDA 8.6.2, the tooltip contents were reworked to provide more details why the file is not usable. For example, the tooltip of an AFF entry. It tells now whether the BLF trace file or the canvas description file cannot be found. This allows also to differentiate from the case when the AFF file itself is not available. For my demonstration, only the file names were changed. This can be corrected easily. Afterwards, I can update the entries in MDA quickly by first removing the files and then using the undo function. Accordingly, the files are reloaded and the error message is not shown anymore. A comparable situation can happen with ASCII-based measure files, namely if the data structure in the file does not match to the structure defined in the INI file. Also, for such cases, the tooltip was reworked to inform better about the possible root cause. In the former versions of MDA 8, several features for importing configurations were done. Now in MDA 8.6.2, a combined export of a configuration and its files is realized. The new export feature allows to provide easily and fast a configuration and all files assigned to it to another MDA 8 user. In the ribbon exists a new button named Export. When using it, the path and the name of the export file needs to be defined. MDA will create a zipped export file. As usual, the progress of the export is visualized in a progress bar. To load an export file created in such a manner, the Import button is used. No further steps than selecting the ZDX file and a folder for unzipping it are necessary. MDA will do the rest. In the Windows Explorer, it can be seen that the ZDX file included the configuration file and all files assigned to it. In my example, these were a measure file, a CDF file, and a lab file. During the import, MDA detects that the files are located in a different location than in the original configuration. This information is used to update and save the paths in the XDX file. Therefore, it is recommended to use for the unpacking and loading of the ZDX file the import functionality of MDA 8. A manual unzipping is possible, but would require more effort from the user. The shown example was for a complete export, which can be useful for archiving an analysis configuration and all used files. In case you just want to share a part with a colleague, you can do this in the following manner. First, you remove in the File Explorer all files you don't intend to share. Superfluous layers and instruments can be deleted as well. Possibly you want to reduce the measure data to a relevant time segment only. Then you trigger the generation of a new measure file and use it to replace the original one. Now the actual export can be started. As the configuration includes unsaved changes, you must save it, for example under a new name, before the export process can take place. And eventually the path and the name for the export file must be set. As you can see after the import, only the shortened measure file was included into the ZDX export file. The following section explains a new function for calculated signals. For quite some time, Inca offers a low-pass filter as operator in the calculated signals. It requires as input the signal to be filtered and a time constant which defines the filter behavior. As usual, the signal can be selected in the Inca experiment and displayed in an oscilloscope. Although the filtering for the signal in my example is not really meaningful, it can be used to demonstrate the general behavior. Even while the recording is still running, MDA can be triggered by a so-called snapshot recording. This allows to analyze the data which was already recorded. When snapshot recording is done, Inca creates a configuration file in the XDA format. This is imported by MDA and used to reconstruct the views from Inca. Additionally, MDA imports from the XDA file the formula for the calculated signals. When it comprises the filter operator, MDA 8.6.2 will use the newly implemented filter function named low-pass filter ascat library. Based on the data of the recorded input signal, a recalculation is done. To differentiate better the calculation done in MDA, I rename the calculated signal. Moreover, I defined for the calculated signal in Inca that it was also added to the recording. This allows a direct comparison of the calculation results from Inca and from MDA. In the overview, both signal curves look similar. By means of calculating the difference from both filtered signals, it can be shown that these are even identical. But another aspect of the new filter operator in MDA might be more relevant for you as a user of Inca and MDA. Let's assume you are analyzing a measure file with a signal which requires some filtering. Now you would like to apply the filter operation already during the next recording in Inca. So you need to find the appropriate value for the time constant parameter. Therefore, you create a calculated signal in MDA using the new operator low-pass filter ascat library. It requires two parameters. One is the time constant, which is set to 5 in my example. The other represents the start value for the calculated signal. The start value parameter is not important for Inca, as there the value 0 defines to use automatically the actual start value of the input signal. However, in MDA the start value parameter can be set. A change of the parameter is visible immediately after the calculated signal is saved. Also, a change of the time constant parameter can be seen directly after save was pressed. The value for the time constant found in MDA can be used as it is for the low-pass filter calculation in Inca. Now I'd like to demonstrate an enhancement for the command line tool MDF-Convert. Especially for measure files in the MDF format, the signals can be recorded in different rasters. A different raster means that the signals were acquired at different points in time. This can be seen in the oscilloscope on a deep zooming level by the distribution of the samples. For a subsequent usage of the measure data, it can be required that all signals are available in the same periodic time raster. This is also called an equidistant raster. Already since some versions MDA 8 supports the generation of measure files with a periodic raster. Now with version 8.6.2, this resampling capability is also available for the command line tool MDF-Convert. You can find MDF-Convert.exe in the program folder for MDA, namely in the subfolder MCD Core. The new arguments are named resampling for activating the feature and period for the definition of the equidistant raster. By the way, as a small usability improvement, both MDF-Convert as well as MDF-Combine allow to enter for time values additionally a time unit. A comfortable way for entering the arguments for MDF-Convert is the usage of an INI file. In my example, this INI file includes the path and names of the source and target files, as well as the format of the target file. As you can see, I am also using the new arguments for resampling to a new raster with an equidistant period of 150 milliseconds. After adding the newly generated measure file to my existing MDA configuration, the change is easily visible in the oscilloscope. Also in the table representation, it is obvious that the signals of the source file were recorded in different rasters. There exists an option to fill the missing samples in this view with the last available sample. In another table view, the same signals from the newly generated file are displayed. First, it can be seen that for all timestamps all signals have a sample. Moreover, the view shows that all timestamps are equidistant with a period of 150 milliseconds. And finally, in the synchronized mode of the tables, it is visible that, when creating the samples in the new periodic raster, again the value of the last available sample was used. Finally, you can see on this slide an overview of all main changes done in MDA 8.6.2. As you can see on this slide, there were again some smaller usability improvements which could be realized with MDA 8.6.2. For more details, please have a look into the What's New slides. You can find these as well as further information materials both in MDA 8 directly as well as on the ETAS homepage. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in MDA 8.